私は Jenessa です。ちょっとの前日本に住んで、テキサスに住んでいました。My name is Jenessa Carder, and I'm from America. So I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and I've lived in Japan for about 5 years. And my day job is I work as a strategist. So that means I help with consumer insights and figure out what does a company need to do, as well as who should they be targeting, why should that person care about something, and then we use all of those insights to make a product better or make an experience better. In 2023, I was given a book called Mismatch, and it's written by an author called Kat Holmes. And this is a book where it's talking about Microsoft's inclusive design system. And inclusive design is basically the idea of how can we design products for as many people as possible. And while I was reading that, I thought it was really interesting because the book only talked about physical ability and how we can design for people in different contexts where maybe you are not able to use your arm because you're carrying too many things, or you have a child in your arm or something, and you have the shared experience as somebody who may not be able to use their arm at all. And that's a great thing to design for those people, but I found myself experiencing many things that were cognitive related to being a foreigner here in Japan. There's a lot of instances where I just can't understand something, or maybe I'm confused by something because I can't read it, or there's an unspoken rule about something. And it dawned on me that there's a lot more to inclusivity than just our physical aspects or things that people can really see about us. So I started exploring this a little bit further, and there's a lot of frameworks in diversity in HR, but nothing really in design thinking. So I built my own framework essentially, and that's what inspired to write a book. I wrote the curious nail that stuck out in order to be helpful as a business guidebook. So the idea is that you use the book depending on what type of business line you work in. So maybe you work in hospitality, maybe you work in retail, and you can actually just jump straight to that chapter. And you can read the stories that are related to inclusivity about retail or travel, depending on what's relevant for your industry. And then within that, it's more meaningful to not just study a framework and words, but actually have a story, understand a person behind the idea of inclusivity. So you'll experience the framework all through my stories first, and then at the end, I really analyze everything for you and teach you, what does this mean? What are some of the things that you can think about? And at the very end of the book, I help you understand what does this mean for your life? Because in order for you to actually be able to translate inclusivity into your line of work, you need to understand how you yourself experience inclusivity or have felt included or excluded in your life. Thinking about the idea of inclusivity, what I realized is that as designers, we use data that already exists about customers. And very rarely does it talk about the things that I was struggling with when it comes to inclusivity. So I'm on a mission to uncover these stories and create data about them. It's not just about my stories, but it's about everybody's stories. Inclusivity is really something that all of us experience on our day-to-day life. We've all had a moment where we felt excluded, we felt different, we didn't fit in. And so actually I started a podcast, and the podcast is meant to tell stories from other people and about other perspectives. So I recently held an interview with a night owl to talk about how the world is mostly designed for people who are early birds, especially here in Japan, which is one of the most early rising countries in the world. And as night owls, a lot of things are closed. There's not a lot of infrastructure for people who operate a little bit later in life. And these are things that we as designers, as business people can design for. So this is what my podcast is for. And I'd love to have more people tell the stories that are relevant to their lives. So if you have a story that you think is great or interesting, or that's really personally relevant to you, reach out. I'd love to have you on my podcast. To reach out to me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm there, and you can send up a direct message to my LinkedIn, as well as you can find me on thecuriousnail.com, which is my personal website, and you can find all of the episodes to my podcast, as well as links to the book. The most important thing when it comes to inclusivity is understanding your own personal story. We are all impacted by a feeling of exclusion at some point in our life, whether it's me wearing glasses when I was a little kid, or my mother who wears hearing aids, or me just being physically present in Japan in a foreign country. But each of us have a personal story, and through understanding your own personal story, you can become more empathetic and make the world a bit better for everyone.